gentlemen, it is time to update my 5-star Genshin Impact characters tier list. It has been about a year since I last made my tier list. A handful of extremely meta influential characters have came out since then. And yes, it's been a year because I like to take the time to make one tier list a year so that I can fully, truly understand the characters, the meta, and how everything has been going down over this last year. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it right here, right now. Really fast, let's get into the tiers. We are starting off with the S+ tier, the GOATs. This is a tier that is exclusive for a small amount of absolutely game-breaking, just the best characters in the entire game, okay? You're gonna know a lot of these characters before I even put them there because they are just the best of the best. But then in S tier, for very strong, these characters are, just as the name says, extremely good. These can be seen as some of the best characters in the game. They just might not be quite as influential to every team comp in the game, or just absolutely stupid broken like the S+ tier characters. These characters are amazing. Then in A, we've got the solid tier. These characters are solid. They are very good. They can easily 36-star the Abyss. They have extremely strong teams. They are just not, compared to the tier above them. Maybe they are some older DPS characters that have been a little bit power crept, things like that, but they are very good. And then B, we've got I or niche. These characters are okay. They are not the best of the best. They are almost never the ultimate optimal character to use for a team or for a run, or they are a DPS that has been heavily power crept or aged over the years. As I always say, and I'll make a caveat soon, you can clear the Abyss with any character in the entire game. These characters are just they're not doing too hot right now. And then finally, the D tier. Okay, I just put the skull emoji because I thought it was funny. These characters they're kind of bruh. They're kind of yikes. They are just really never the best option to pick unless you really like them, because you should go and pick whatever character you want. I will always say that. That's what this game is about, okay? But these characters are just, unfortunately, some of the weakest 5 stars in the game, and I will, of course, go into every reason as to why I think that. No C? All right, guys. S, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. No, there's no C. And I have a quick PSA caveat for all of you. I put this in every single tier list I ever make, okay? Just because I say a character is bad does not mean you should not play them or you should not pull them. If they are your favorite character, if you love that character for some reason, I want you to pull them. I want you to strive to be the best with that character, and I want to see you pop off and do sick things with that character, okay? I am one guy's opinion, and the only reason I am making this tier list is because people really do want a second opinion from a creator who plays this game every goddamn day of his life way too much than he should, and I just happen to be one of those people, and I honestly do love educating people, so I am giving you guys obviously it's subjective because it's my opinion, but I am giving you, in my opinion, how good these characters are purely based off of their strength and ability to 36-star the Abyss to clear Genshin Impact's hardest content, okay? That is what I am rating them on. And so please pick and play any character you want. This is just one guy's opinion purely based off of the meta. So we are going to do the tier list, ladies and gentlemen, in order of release date, but I will occasionally ask chat to give me a character that they want to see. But we are going to immediately break the rule that I just did and do Aloy, baby! Woo! Let's make it quick. Aloy sucks. And a lot of you guys probably don't even have her because she's not available anymore, okay? She's cryo, not a great element. Her kit is bad. She can't get the stacks. She does no damage. She misses her attacks all the time. She is just absolutely abysmal. Please, use her if you don't like yourself, I guess, but she's really, really, really not good. Someone in chat just brought up, guys, no constellations. This is, in general, a C0 tier list. I will mention a character's C1 if it is a real big game changer that really ups them, but this is, in general, a C0 tier list. I'm going to go into detail about every single character, why they are there, not just throw them there, except for Aloy, because Aloy hasn't really earned my respect, if I'm being completely honest. So let's kick it off, ladies and gentlemen, with Jean. Jean has always been a very solid character, and she has remained there to this day. Animo characters, Viridis and Veteran, it's what makes them good. Shred resistances of the Petch elements, it just makes characters very good. So she does that. And then she has a complete team-wide burst heal, which is very useful on a lot of different teams, but I'm sure a lot of you guys know Furina is a very strong character in Genshin Impact, and she requires a healer that can heal her entire team in one big go to get the most optimal usage out of her, and Jean does that. So with all of those things combined, Jean is a solid, strong character. She is not the best of the best. She is not broken, but she is very useful and very usable. Solid. Mona, the reason I downloaded this game in the first place. And here we are today. I love Mona. She's great. Well, she's not exactly great when it comes to clearing the abyss and competitive content in this game. She's great for the clickbait, big number, screenshot, YouTube video, clips, whatever. That is about where her usefulness ends, okay? Her burst is this Omen damage buff, which is great, but it doesn't last that long, which sucks. And then her hydro application is just not good. Her little taunt thing, it's not very good. It doesn't last very long. Her normal attacks, dashing around with her, feel clunky. All of her kit just doesn't feel good. You know, the water puddle sprint is just not very nice. I genuinely don't find places to use Mona almost ever. I think if I am using Mona, it's because like I want to use Mona, not because like I want my team to be very good. It sucks to say it. You can use her, you can make her useful, you can get some high damage numbers with her on the team, but just in general, I think she is one of the weakest Hydro characters in the game, and you are going to see that I think Hydro is the best element in the entire game. Chad, it's time for you to pick my next character. Go. Keqing. Dude, Keqing's... Sounds good, man. Keqing! I actually do play a lot of Keqing, and I think she is genuinely my favorite on-field Electro DPS, unless I am forgetting somebody. You've got Aggravate, you could even try Hyperbloom, you could run her with Chevreuse Overload. So many different teams. Keqing is fun, she is quick, she feels like she has no energy problems whatsoever. She gets bonus crit in her kit. She has a bunch of weapons that are extremely good on her, but I have just noticed that over time, her damage numbers are just ever so slightly dwindling, okay? Can she 36 star the Abyss? Absolutely, dude. She's very good, very strong, and just has amazing teammates, but I do feel like she has just been slowly being pushed down the tier list in terms of her like damage ceiling. And so I respectfully love this character, think she's extremely fun and extremely good. I'm going to move her to the top of the solid tier this time around. This is a big one, chat. Next up, we have Diluc. Diluc was fighting for his life last time I made the tier list between the B tier and, yes, the dreaded D tier. Now, there is a big elephant in the room that we must address. Diluc has received an extremely massive buff in one character in this game who we will get to, Shan, the sexy Liyue bird lady. With her and a couple other teammates, Diluc has a team where he just pumps out absolutely insane levels of damage because of his plunge attack multiplier. He has the highest plunge attack multiplier in the entire game. It's just Diluc. I don't know why they did that, but they did. This guy goes crazy on that one team, but you need Shan, Furina, and optimally you need C6 Bennett. So a C6 4-star and 2 limited 5-stars for this guy to be on an extremely optimal team. I genuinely do not think that it is fair for me to be like, Diluc's in very strong tier because he has one team that requires a bunch of exact characters, even with constellations, but I am willing to admit that it does make the ever so slightest difference to him, okay? So I think it is fair that he goes into the I or niche tier. I would probably use Diluc over Mona if I'm being completely honest. So just to completely clarify, Diluc has one amazing team, but it's extremely niche and you need a lot of characters. So I think just in general, this is a safe place to put him. First character that we see in the chat, I will grade. Go. Arlie. Chad has chosen Arlecchino up next. Now, this has been one of the most hyped characters Genshin has gotten over the last year. She's hot, she's badass, she's hella cool, and I will tell you right now, she is absolutely just broken, man. Now look, it is hard for me to put raw, pure DPS characters into the S+ tier. And I know that that sounds stupid, but when just all they do is a bunch of damage, they are not useful to a lot of different teams for Genshin Impact. They are not a versatile character. They are a character that does what they do it the best, and they just come out and pump damage. So to me, it just doesn't feel like they are a complete game changer, game warping character, because lots of other characters can just carry with these supports around them. But I think there are a couple DPS characters in this game that Hoyo they overtuned them. We gotta hit some numbers this quarter. We are going to make these characters batshit insane, and that is Arlecchino. She does the highest raw pyro damage out of any character in the entire game. You could use her on Vape, you could use her on Chevrolet's Overload, you could even use her on Mono Pyro for all I care, and she is just going to destroy everything. It's honestly unbelievable. This character's damage is absolutely insane. I just have to put her here, but I will tell you right now, she is going to be near the very, very bottom of S+ tier because there are definitely characters that I think make a massive impact on your account, more than Arlecchino, but this character, dude, is busted. All right, I said busted a couple times, and that makes me think of someone who's so good. It's Qiqi! Ladies and gentlemen, Qiqi is not a completely useless character. She heals, but she does not heal the entire team in one massive, amazing, giant burst. For part of her heal to be like super useful, she has to be on field, normal attacking, which we don't want that. We don't want to waste our screen time with Qiqi swinging a sword that's taller than her on the screen for no damage. Oh man. Guys, maybe I change my mind a little bit later, but I'm going to put her in the D tier. There's just better healers, and that's all she does. Truly, that's all she does, and there are better healers. The more healers we get, the worse Qiqi is. You can use her on your team comp, and that's okay, but she's just really not great. Okay, going into our newest, they're not very new, but newest standard banner 5 stars. We got Tighnari, and then we're gonna do Dehya after. Tighnari is, in my opinion, the best standard banner character, hands down. Dendro as a element is just absolutely amazing. Even as a DPS, it's fantastic paired with Electro support and, you know, a couple other elements, maybe some Hyperbloom, maybe some Burgeon. But Tighnari's not exactly good at Burgeon. He can be on some Hyperbloom teams, but anyway, this guy is extremely good. On my last tier list, I really did compare Tighnari and Keqing as the standard banner DPSs, who are similar, but I do think Tighnari is probably better. I think his damage ceiling is higher, but he does fit the same bill as Keqing, having amazing free-to-play options for weapons. I think he is the best standard banner character, and I think he is a DPS that can just absolutely wash the abyss. He puts up crazy numbers, bro, and his constellations, this isn't a constellation tier list, but they're easier to get because he is a standard banner character. Dude's really freaking good, so he's gonna go probably near the bottom of very strong. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next up is Dehya, one of my favorite characters. I have her triple crown. I have her C6. She's one of my favorite characters. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna sit here and lie to you and tell you that she is good, because I genuinely do think she is very not good. Dude, look, a lot of people have been bringing up this like renaissance of Dehya because of her supportability for characters like Nuvalette at C0, not letting him get knocked over. Or a character like Linny, who is a character who wants to be with other pyro characters and is a charge attack bow character who doesn't want to get knocked over. Bro, you still get knocked over. Her buff is just really not that great. Her damage is absolutely atrocious. If you want to build her as a DPS, you are not really going to get anywhere until you start getting some high constellations, and you need an extremely high quality build for her to work. She is worse than Toma at Burgeon, but you can make a good Burgeon team with Dehya. Chat is not happy with this. Yeah, man, bro. If someone was like, how good is Dehya? I wouldn't say she's all right. I wouldn't say that because she's not. I understand that she is good to an extent with Mualani. You still need another pyro character. You're kind of just throwing her on there because you feel like it. There's better options than Dehya. And then Emilie, right? Sure, she's an off-field pyro character, but there's better off-field pyro characters, man. I love this character, but she's really not good. I will let her bench warm the bottom of B, but I could snap at any moment. So you guys need to be careful. Homies, I just want to interrupt this tier list really fast to ask you to sub to the channel or check if you are subbed to the channel. Me and my girlfriend Alina, we have been working day and night to make fire content for you guys, and I play this goddamn game every single day so that I can have good opinions on these characters and these tier lists for you and have an educated brain. Okay, so hey, just check if you're subbed. I'd appreciate it. I'll give you a second. All right, back to the list. Chat, who do we want next? Go. Coke is guessing. There's no way. That was too fast. They're outside my fucking window and I'm scared. So let's do Navia up next, our Geo princess. A character that a lot of people thought was going to be the renaissance of Geo. And depending on your definition of renaissance, maybe she is. But to me, Navia is not a Geo character. I think of her as this like elementalist character that comes in and blows shit up, does a ton of freaking damage, and you have to balance crystallized shards, which is just a part of her elementalistness, okay? She doesn't work like a Geo character in the way that she like has these constructs, or, you know, she needs the defense scalers on her team like Goro and stuff like that. She is a extremely high damage character that just happens to be Geo. And that doesn't make her bad, okay? I just explained that all because that's how I think of Navia. She is very freaking good. I mean, I think she kind of has to go into very strong. You can get just absolutely amazing damage numbers with Navia if you play her well with Crystallized. She works amazing with Farina. She works amazing with Bennett. She works with Zhongli. All of these amazing characters are like her perfect teammates, and they just allow her to absolutely pop off. And the awesome thing about her is that she doesn't require an extremely long field time. You come in and burst near the beginning of her rotation. So the cannonballs are dropping and you're getting lots of crystallized shards on the field. You set up Bennett, you set up Farina, you set up whoever you want. She works with so many great characters. Then she comes in with full bullets, boom, just blows everything up with that second shot. Do a couple normal attacks, which are now infused with Geo, get a few more shards, and just boom, blow their head off again, switch out into your other teammates for them to do useful things. And that is an extremely cool and unique ability that a character wants in Genshin Impact, and that Navia has. People are mentioning Xilonen. Yes, she's amazing with Xilonen as well. Navia is great. Next up is Venti, the first ever Archon we had in Genshin Impact. I used to say this a lot, that Venti is either one of the best characters in the entire game, or he feels pretty darn mid. And that is purely just based on the abyss floor that we get. If there are a bunch of small enemies that can get sucked up by Venti's burst, he feels like a god. But against heavy enemies or big single boss enemies, he's not very good. And I am going to be honest, as someone who plays every single abyss for hours on end, doing 4-star challenges, other kinds of challenges, I don't think Venti has had a Venti-friendly abyss in years. Like, I can't keep defending the guy because Hoyo isn't giving him time to shine. Every enemy that Hoyo drops now, they are thick as fuck. They weigh so much, he does not budge them with his burst. So they have just been making the game worse and worse and worse for this guy. But I mean, at the end of the day, he does a lot of swirls, he applies animo, and he can group things. Like, I mean, he is solid. I used to put him in very strong, but like he cannot be in very strong anymore. If I'm being completely honest, he just can't. It sucks to kind of see the fall from grace, but like if Genshin decides to give us small enemies again, he'll pop off. But I truly don't think Genshin is gonna do it anymore. And he's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. Mondstadt's strongest fighter is up next. Klee, and we all know Klee is adorable and so sweet, but she's not amazingly good. Klee does have teams where she can actually pop off pretty hard, okay? With Farina, and I'm not saying this because just Farina's broken, okay? It's because of how Farina applies so much hydro off field. Klee applies so much pyro that it allows Farina to vape her attacks, and it makes for a really cool team. So that's one of Klee's best teams, but you know, I'm kind of struggling to come up with some other like amazing teams for Klee. She applies a lot of pyro, which is a very useful thing, but she has to be on field to do that. And there are other characters, even 4-stars like Xiangling, that apply a ton of pyro off field and feel better to play than Klee. As a standalone character, to me, Klee is better than Diluc. I need the Diluc players to know that Diluc has one extremely amazing team, and if you have Shanya, Farina, and C6 Bennett, he will do amazing things. But if you do not, he is not very good. I know it's hard to say, but he's not. So like, I think I'm just gonna do this. Chat, I think I'm being too lenient with the D tier. Guys, the tier list is going to, you know, change around as the video goes by. That's why you have to watch the entire thing, okay? Not only to support me, but to support your brain and the knowledge of what I'm saying. So we're just gonna chill here for a bit and, you know, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Chat, give me a character. We got Jake Prime on Wanderer. Now, I always have to say this about animo DPS characters. They have it the hardest in Genshin for a couple reasons. Animo is not an element that can be buffed traditionally by things like Viridescent Fenrir or, you know, other like elemental buffs in the game. It's kind of hard to boost animo damage, okay? Now, you can boost animo damage by quite a high margin, but that is with Faruzan, a 4-star character and she is not really worth using until she is at C6. So you have to go off of a very small amount of things to get boosted anemo damage, like Jean's C4 or Zhongli's Pillar raises the damage of everything you do. Anemo DPSs have it a little bit rough. Now, Chaska is coming out at the time of this video's release, so maybe that shakes things up. We still don't know every detail about her kit. Wanderer is decent. He has a lot of supports that are very useful to him, but it's just every Anemo DPS has the same problem where Swirl is the only reaction that you are going to be creating, and Swirl scales with Elemental Mastery and your character level. Obviously, you'll get him up to 90, but like, you're not gonna build Elemental Mastery on this character. You're going to build crit stats, and you are going to build attack, and then maybe even ER depending on, you know, your rotation constellation if you want to use your burst or not, right? So like, his damage is fine, but like at C0, it's just okay. Probably around here, I think is pretty fair. He is a solid, strong character. Going back to the regularly scheduled order, we have Childe, our first ever Fatui Harbinger, who is playable, okay? Childe, guys, he is a character that's been around a very, very, very long time. He does one thing, and he does it extremely well. That is a lot of hydro application in a big AoE with his Riptide. Dude does a lot of damage. He's still an extremely, extremely, extremely strong freaking character. His big pitfall, though, is he's usable on like one freaking team. You have Bennett, you have Xiangling, and then you can get a little bit creative with that last slot, but it's usually going to be an Anemo character to swirl the elements and boost up the damage of Xiangling and Childe's vaporizes, respectively. Okay? Brain rot. Right, brain rot. He's still insanely freaking strong. He is just super plain. So like, I don't think that really takes away from the amount of damage that this guy can put out. This guy just slaps. He somehow got blessed with crazy damage numbers from patch like 1.2 whenever he came out. Chat, it's getting hot in here, bro. Here we go, baby. Zhongli, the Geo Archon. In my first ever tier list, I put Zhongli in S+ tier. And then in my second, I moved him to the very bottom of S. And guys, dude, after the last abyss we just had, which was an absolute geo hell, where we needed to break a bunch of shields, and then the amount of characters that we have gotten that really do want a big juicy shield on their body, like Nuvalette, it truly made me question again, does Zhongli deserve to be in the S+ tier? He creates the pillar and creates a massive shield for the entire team. That pillar shreds the resistances of every enemy by a pretty decent margin. So Zhongli boosts up the damage that your team does. It's not a insane buff like Farina or Bennett's attack buff, but it is a substantial DPS increase for any team that he is on. Then he is a Geo character, and Geo Resonance is an extremely good resonance. So if you're running him with another Geo character, he gives you that buff as well. I really do think he is extremely good, and I think he's getting better because of characters that are like glass cannons that require these big support characters. So I think I'm gonna keep him at the top of very strong. He is genuinely a godlike character and one of the best characters in the game, but is he in the GOATs? I'm not sure this time around. Next up is Albedo, and man, this is a little bit tough, my dude. Okay, Albedo is an off-field Geo sub DPS. He puts the flower down, and the flower ticks and does some damage. Great. Here is Albedo's problem. He is a split scaling character. There is split scaling and there is dual scaling, okay? There is a giant difference and you need to know it, okay? Albedo's skill scales with his defense and his burst scales with his attack. So when you want to build both of those stats on your characters, it just makes both mediocre instead of both being really good. You have to choose to make one really good. You're never gonna choose his burst. You're gonna make the skill be that one. So you're gonna stack defense on him. That leaves him being a little bit mediocre. And then there is another Geo character later on this tier list that we will go over, Chiori, who is the same thing, an off-field sub DPS who is Geo, and she pretty much outclasses him in every single way, shape, and form. And so that really leaves Albedo in this weird spot of like, where is he very good? And I'm gonna be honest, it's not really anywhere. Klee and Albedo are both not amazing, actually. Bro, are we about to do this? When I think of the bottom 5 stars in the game, the ones I'm looking at are the ones that come to mind. Tier list crisis averted and, you know, more emotion changing from your boy. But I truly think, let's just talk about Albedo for one last second. You know, he can do okay damage. He can be slotted on some teams, but there's always going to be a character that is a better choice than him, genuinely. And I just don't feel like that even makes him fit into niche or all right. I think he is a weaker character. You can still do stuff with him, but he's weak. Yeah, drop Venti into I8 or niche. I think that's probably where we're at. Here we go. It's the original cryo goat, Ganyu, one of the most beautiful characters in the game. But this tier list is not about beauty. This is about strength. And she is quite a strong lady, but how strong is she? Okay, when she dropped, she just absolutely blew the meta apart. She was the strongest freeze team, especially with Venti. All the enemies were getting sucked up, frozen, and just absolutely one-tapped from her charge attacks, okay? And then as the meta went forward, we got characters that could make these really good melt teams, especially with Dendro, with Nahida, all that kind of stuff. You could do these sick burn melt teams where Ganyu is melting, pew, 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 just crazy charge attacks for a ton of damage. And she still has those teams available to her. While the freeze teams have definitely taken a bit of a backseat in the meta for sure. A lot of enemies are not easily freezable. Characters are very easily meltable still because all you got to do is put Dendro on him, put Pyro on him, and play really well, and you can do it, right? So Ganyu's melt teams are hard to play, but they result in an extremely high amount of damage. You do need some very, you know, specific characters to make this happen. Things like Nahida, and then, you know, some pretty good Pyro characters like Bennett, maybe Zhongli Shield, and then even, yes, you know, Dehya. I don't really like it because it never feels good playing Dehya, but yeah, Burn Melt is where Ganyu truly shines right now. It is a team that requires so much setup, and you've still got to like dodge a lot of attacks. The charge up of her charge shot, you know, kind of takes a while. And I really do think like some of the more like really used DPSs right now in the game, just I think they do outclass her. Last time in the tier list, I put her into very strong. I really do feel like her damage ceiling is there. It's not easy to do. I think right now she goes to the top of solid. I also just think the damage is getting a little bit crept as we keep going, and that's fine. But I just don't really think Ganyu is at the top of her game right now, and she's still pretty solid, but we'll put her here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get it here. Xiao, another Animo DPS. Just like I said with Wanderer, Animo DPSs do have a little bit of a harder time in the game because of how they get their multipliers and their team comps and whatnot. But it does not mean that they are bad. It just means that they need very specific characters to support them and all that. And then the same thing about Swirl. You want to build attack and crit rate, so you're not really going to be doing elemental reactions. You're going off of raw base damage. And Xiao has amazing multipliers, but I mean, he has, you know, a lot of downtime in his kit. He needs specific supports. He needs a lot of energy support as well, but his damage is very, very good. I think he's for sure solid. A tier. All right, baby, it's time for Hu Tao, the original Arlecchino. I absolutely love Hu Tao. She's one of my favorite characters. I have played her for years upon years upon years. And dude, I don't get how people can disrespect Hu Tao's damage still to this day. I am easily able to admit that I think Arlecchino is better than her. I think Arlecchino does more damage, and I think she does it easier. But that does not mean Hu Tao is bad. Her charge attacks on an amazing team, they're hitting from 80 to 100 freaking K. And how many of those charge attacks can you get out on an enemy in her one skill, bro? Like 7, 8? That's close to a milli damage, okay? And don't think a million damage is something that people just hit normally with C0 characters, okay? That's not a thing. Hu Tao's damage ceiling is absolutely insane. She synergizes with some of the best characters in the entire game, like Xingqiu and Yelan, for her like insane vape teams. I will tell you, Hu Tao's teams are a lot more restrictive, less creative, right? You want her on these vape teams, but like it's tried, it's true, and like it's proven itself time and time again to be such an absolutely insanely high DPS team. And then the last thing to say about Hu Tao, we have to talk about her C1 versus her C0. Her C1 does not result in more damage. If anything, maybe if you want to take in like the factor of playing the game and human error or whatever, her C1 maybe raises her damage by like 5 to 10%. When you are playing Hu Tao, you can just jump cancel her charge attack. So you will lose stamina from charge attacking, but then you jump through your charge attack and you will cancel it, and then you can charge attack again, which is the same almost as C1, where you don't lose stamina charge attacking, but then you do lose stamina dashing into your next attack, right? Yes, it feels weird. A lot of people don't like it. I understand that. C1 is a fun buff, but if you are willing to jump cancel, the damage is similar. So like, it's a very weird constellation that I do recommend if you really do love Hu Tao, because it makes her more fun to play, but it isn't an increase in damage. I know it's weird to say, but it's the truth. So even at C0, Hu Tao belongs up here, baby. Absolutely go to character. I love Hu Tao. Give me a character, chat. It's your time to shine. Here we go. Prime with Shenhe and a very odd Kirby emote. All right, let's go to Shenhe. All right, you are getting exclusive content right now. Leaks TV has entered the room, okay? We are talking about this new cryo support character, Shenhe. All right, jokes aside, she hasn't gotten a rerun in a while. All right, everyone's calling her a new character. But Shenhe was a character that was always kind of attached to the hip to Ayaka. And I said on all my tier lists, the more cryo DPSs that we get, Shenhe will become a better character over time. And I used to rate Shenhe pretty low on my tier list because I kind of think of my tier list as characters that you should pull for or characters that are worth your primogems. I still do kind of think about it that way, but I'm doing this one a little bit more traditional on the strongest characters in my opinion. So Shenhe, with the addition of a new cryo DPS in Wriothesley, has gotten better. Shenhe is an amazing support for Ayaka, cryo DPS. She is an amazing support for Wriothesley, another cryo DPS. So that raises her power up just a little bit. I do still think though, she is an extremely niche character. She is practically only used with Ayaka or Wriothesley, or sometimes on some kind of niche Ganyu teams. And to me, she's good, man. This character is good, but like, she is extremely niche and like, she's not necessary on those teams. She will take those teams to like the ever so slightest next level, but it's not like Wriothesley is unusable without Shenhe. It's like, yeah, oh dude, I got Shenhe on my Wriothesley team. This feels great. And Shenhe, is just another thing about her is like, she requires a lot of energy recharge for her to function. A lot of people just stack attack on her and like, it's not enough. You're not gonna get your burst up, and if you don't get your burst up, you suck. So like, you have to actually build her really smartly, but she is an impactful character for the characters that she works for. Now, I will say this, chat. The next region we are getting is Snezhnaya, the cryo region, okay? And I can promise you we're gonna get one good cryo character, the Saritsa. And so maybe we get a big handful of cryo characters and Shenhe pops off even more, but don't get it twisted. Shenhe is very strong, but only for those characters that I mentioned. That just makes her a little bit niche, and she's all right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Eula, the last standing pillar of the physical DPS team comp. It's a forgotten team comp. It's a forgotten element, and it is just it has absolutely not gotten any kind of buff in the longest time. Mika was the buff, and Mika is Mika. Eula is known for having some of the craziest like screenshot numbers the game has ever seen, but those are with absolutely cracked supports. Lots of characters can do that. The average Eula experience in the abysses that we've been having lately feel not great, man. Can you pop off with Eula? Absolutely. But it is one of those characters that is kind of reliant on if Hoyoverse is gonna throw us a bone and give us an abyss with elements with like lowered physical res. I try playing Eula pretty often because like I like her and I like looking at her. And like, it just doesn't feel great right now. And those numbers that I used to see just in the like 200, 300,000, I'm not really seeing it anymore because of just how high the res is of some of these enemies. And the time it takes to get to her burst, man, it's like a 12-second rotation. Arlecchino needs like 3 seconds to do all that damage. And then another thing, guys, drop the emote in chat. If her burst does not crit, because everything comes down to her burst, she is bad. Like, just straight up bad. If her burst doesn't crit, she's not good. So I think that this is fair to put her here. Okay, we're spicing it up a little bit here. Xilonen has moved her way up the list because we are going to rate both Kazuha and Xilonen at the same time. If you did not know, Xilonen, the, hot leopard ocelot cat girl that just came out, has been heavily compared to Kazuha. a character who is an amazing team buffer of multiple elements, a support that enables their team to do a lot of damage. And so which one is better than the other has been a, hot contentious debate going around the community. And to me, after playing Xilonen extensively and then playing Kazuha for years and years and years on end, both of these characters are absolutely goated. They are the now duo Kingpin team buffers. Xilonen can buff every single element in the entire game. Kazuha can only buff the Petch elements, but he comes with other benefits, okay? He does way more damage. His burst swirls do a lot of damage because you build him elemental mastery. His skill does a lot of damage. He generates a lot of energy. And grouping, of course. You hold his skill, group enemies. Kazuha has that over Xilonen, but I would say that Xilonen in general has a just ever so slightly higher and more effective damage buff to the team because she can help every single element combined. And then she also can, get an increased buff with the Hero of City Cinder, whatever the hell the name of the artifact set is. She gets a bonus on top of that. And she heals. So it's heal and better buff over more damage and grouping. And so I think that those two things are not crazily different enough to really separate them as characters when it comes to this tier list. They are both absolutely godlike, absolutely amazing support characters that any person on their account would absolutely love to have. I just personally, in my heart of hearts, think Kazuha's utility is just a little bit better. I think that this is where we're at. They're absolutely amazing. S+. Let's get into the wet sock princess, Ayaka. I'm just gonna keep it a buck. I'm gonna hit you guys with it right now. She's fallen from grace. She was at one point the premier insane cryo DPS character that Genshin Impact had. I always love to sing Ayaka's praises because when you pop off, when you get that enemy frozen and you just hit the full tick of her burst, it feels absolutely amazing. But dude, we have not had the privilege of having a good Ayaka Abyss in what feels like 2 years, okay? Maybe 1 or 2 Abysses over the last 2 years have been pretty good for Ayaka. But in general, these big boss-like enemies that can't be frozen or have freeze resist just kind of shut her down. And yes, Ayaka does have other teams that are not based on freeze. She does have some cool melt teams. You could even run her on mono cryo with Shenhe, Kazuha, and another cryo character, and she will do pretty decent, but it just hasn't really felt amazing to use her, and that is tough. So I have to grade her on the experience of playing Genshin Impact, and lately it hasn't really felt great. So I think right here is probably pretty fair. She's good. She's strong. You can force her to work in certain abysses, but in general, she hasn't been feeling very good. So she's a solid character. Chat, give me a character, go. Emily's up next. Chat has requested Emilie up next. Emilie is a character that when she came out, I think a lot of people were big sleeping on her. I think it was because it was right before Natlan, so everyone was saving for Mualani and all that kind of stuff. And then a lot of people didn't really mess with her design very much, and that kind of put them off. So I don't think a ton of people pulled for Emilie, but dude, I think the people that did pull for her are pretty happy because she is an extremely high DPS character who gets further buffed. I mean, she pretty much requires you to have burning on the team for her to reach her, peak. She is able to do high dendro damage for an extremely long period of time, which is extremely valuable. And she applies a lot of dendro the whole time off field to the team, which is very valuable. Okay, so on burning alone team comps, she is completely necessary. She makes the burning team comps just absolutely pop off. Okay, you can run Arlecchino on a burning team comp. You can run burn melt characters on these burning team comps like Ganyu, for example. Okay, she works on these kinds of teams which aren't extremely versatile. It's pretty much burn and burn melt, but on the team she works on, she does a really high amount of damage, and she is quite valuable to the team. Emilie in A tier is good. She's a strong character. I just don't think she's in the upper tier of characters, so we'll put her here. It's time for Yoimiya, one of my favorite characters. I know I say that a lot, but hey, man, I got 4 or 5 favorite characters, okay? We got room. We got room for a lot of 2D dimensional girls in our heart. Yoimiya is pretty darn okay. Her single target DPS is still really, really, really good. But being solely single target really does limit you as a character. I did just use her in an Abyss challenge on the channel. Maybe you could go watch the video if you want. And she felt amazing. She clutched it. And it was awesome. Like, I love playing Yoimiya. Every time I play her, it is a good time. But she requires like these certain vaporized characters to really support her. She usually requires a shield to play comfortably. So something like Zhongli, right? Which is a lot of limitations for not a whole lot of reward. Her damage is high in single target situations, but even then it's not the highest damage you could possibly get in the game. I think that this is fair. I love Yoimiya. She is a good character, but she's not the best. Raiden Shogun, her excellency. And another character that has a long, historical, tumultuous past on my tier list. My first ever tier list. I put her in S, not the highest tier. Then I changed her. I upgraded her. She got promoted into the S+ tier. And so now Raiden Shogun's pure DPS hyper carry build and her ability in that role has definitely taken a fall. And please keep in mind again, this is at C0. I see all these characters on this list, and I think a lot of them on their hyper carry teams are actually outpacing Raiden Shogun in that regard. But Raiden has the ability of being a very versatile character in that she can be a Hyper Bloom driver. Hyper Bloom, we all know it, we love it. It's a pretty brain dead, easy team comp to get a lot of damage from. But with the Abyss's HP numbers getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, Hyper Bloom as a team comp is a hard team to get that damage up. Like Hyper Bloom almost kind of has like a soft ceiling of what it can hit. And then the other thing to note about her is her energy recharge that she can give to teams. But like, you're not really ever running Raiden on the team as a battery. You are running her as a main DPS or a sub DPS, and that is a bonus. Man, dude, this is so hard because I know people are gonna freaking hate it, bro. But like, at the end of the day, man, I think, I don't know if Hyper Bloom is enough. I don't know if Hyper Bloom is enough to put her in S+ right now. I think this is where my heart's taking me, homies. Obviously, this is not a disrespectful rating. She is an extremely strong character. Look how high she is, bro. She's the 4th highest character on the tier list right now. Can we really cry and complain about that? Raiden Shogun is at the top of very strong. From one Inazuman queen to another, Kokomi. Yes, I'm gonna say it again. One of my favorite characters, okay? One of my favorite characters. Kokomi at C0 is potentially, still to this day, the best overall healer in Genshin Impact. And again, she is one of the best elements in the entire game of Hydro. So best healer, she's Hydro. She applies Hydro with her normal attacks, which is extremely beneficial. She already applies a lot of Hydro with her Jellyfish, okay? Her burst refreshes the Jellyfish time. You can get that Jellyfish up for so long, just healing the team, applying Hydro. She's good on Bloom. She's good on some of these national teams. She is absolutely amazing on Farina team comps, which we'll get there, I know, but she is just godlike to have on those kinds of teams. She drives because she normal attacks with Hydro while healing the team up a ton. Kokomi is extremely good, but she is also a bit of a low impact character in the way that she doesn't do a lot of damage. She enables characters to do their thing and pop off and allows them to do a lot of damage, but her herself does not do an insane amount of damage. Considering all of that though, I think she's one of the best support characters in the entire game. And especially with how good Farina teams are, I think that she is pretty invaluable on a lot of different team comps. She has so many good support artifact sets she can run, so many good weapons she can run on teams, so many viable teams that she's good on. She's really good, man. If you know how to play her, you know how to utilize the elemental reaction system, you know how to utilize her heal. She's not a generic damage character, but she is a character that can provide so much if you know how to use her kit of healing and Hydro. So I think she does belong here, genuinely. Such a good character, such a really good character. Who you want me to rate next? Chat has decided for me to rate Mualani Next, I love Mualani. She's pretty awesome. And dude, does this girl do some absolutely bonkers, insane damage, bro. My God. Mualani's kit revolves around vaporize, okay? You have to get her to vaporize one way or another. Whether that is Xiangling's burst, some sort of burn, you know, thing with Nahida and some pyro characters, or something with Emilie and, you know, some other pyro characters, or Animo, whatever. You have to vape her attacks. So every single one of her team comps is a little bit restrictive in that way that you have to make sure you can get this element, pyro, above the enemy's head when you want to attack with Mualani. So with that, playing her team comps can feel a little bit, I don't want to use the word clunky, but like very linear. Like I have to do this thing and then I, you know, hit, get the third stack and chomp, right? I have to do this before I can do this. And it's not as simple as like click Yelan burst before I charge attack with Utao, okay? It is like set up these consistent pyro attacks before I vape. And like characters like Xiangling, it's not actually that hard. I do think you have to get used to it, but it really isn't that big of a hurdle to climb, but it is something you have to do to get the most out of this character. And when you get this character at her highest absolute potential, bro, she is just absolutely blasting off, bro. Her teams are kind of hard to set up, but I mean, when you get used to it and you set up and you learn how to play this character, it's just insane. It's like 300k vapes. Like, just look at the math. It's just absurd. Mualani has been blowing the ceiling off of this game up with the upper tiers like Arlecchino and some other ones. So I just think this is fair. Going back down to Arataki Itto, baby. This is a mono Geo guy. He wants Goro. He wants Zhongli. He wants sub Geo DPSs on his team, something like Albedo, something like Chiori. And like, man, he does a lot of damage, but like he's tied at the hip to Goro, a 4-star who supports him super well. And he doesn't synergize with very many characters because he has to be on field, stacking up his passive to get the charge attacks, then charge attacking a bunch, and then stacking it up again. Like he hogs the field and he's pure Geo. So there's no reactions going on. So it all comes down to his raw damage. I think his damage is pretty similar to some of these characters above. Wanderer, Keqing, Xiao. Like I think their damage ceilings are relatively similar. But like Wanderer can be used with like 15 different characters. Keqing can be used with like 15 different characters on 3 different kinds of elemental team comp. Itto is just extremely not versatile. The teams are good, but the ceiling isn't insanely high. But dude, Itto can pop off. Don't get it twisted. He's not bad. He is just niche and he's pretty all right. Chat, I'm making a little bit of an addendum. I'm gonna bring Tighnari down to solid. I still think he is extremely good. I'm just looking at the S tier right now. I think these characters are just ever so slightly above him. Just a little mid tier list adjustment. I'm gonna move him down here. Yae Miko, the hot fox lady from Inazuma. Once again, fans of the channel, homies who have watched my previous tier list know I'm not a big fan of this character. I hate how long it takes to get out her 3 turrets. I hate how she is interruptible during them. She has extremely high energy requirements. Her rotations feel weird. Now that is a lot of shit talk, but those were almost like personal gripes that I have with the character. Now, how good is the character? Off-field Electro is very, very invaluable. It enables a lot of Dendro DPSs to be these crazy spread DPSs, and you know, may she get some aggravates too. It enables a lot of Electro DPSs, right? So you have like a Dendro support, like Baizu or Nahida, right? And then you have 2 Electro DPSs on the field who are both gonna be aggravating and doing a ton of damage. And she's also, you know, she could be on Hyperbloom teams. It's a little bit jank, but like you can make it work, and she can be a good like DPS as well as a Hyperbloom character at the same time. She is versatile and strong. My problem lies with, there is a 4-star character in this game that I would choose over Yae Miko every single time, and I do. That is Fischl. Wait for the 4-star tier list. It will come out soon. She is really good. I think the S tiers are better. I think she is like a good definition of the top of solid, very close to those characters, because she does work. She does have some shortcomings, energy, AI, and competition with other characters, even being a 4-star. So I think I'm gonna put her at solid. Next up is Ayato, a little bit of a, how do you say, maybe forgotten Hydro character, or less in the limelight of the Hydro characters, because like I've said a lot of times in this tier list, Hydro is, in my opinion, the best element in the game. And Ayato is, I always use this word when I describe Ayato, jack of all trades character. He can be the DPS character, and he's good at it. Is he absolutely broke and cracked at it? No, but he's good at it, okay? Can he be a hydro applicator for like Hyper Bloom or a freeze team or like any of the good hydro teams? Can he do it? Yes. Can he be a support where it's like he's more of a burst for setting up vape and normal tasks, something like Yoimiya? He does a lot of things in one character, but you know, he's not the absolute best at it. He's not the best hydro DPS. He's not the best hydro support. That doesn't mean he's bad. It's actually cool that he does a lot of things, but it just makes it so his like peak as a character isn't that unbelievably high. I think I would put him right here. He is a good freaking character. It's just he's not really gonna pop off. He's not gonna be the highlight character, and that's fine. But like, man, is he versatile, and you can slot him onto a lot of different teams and he'll do a good job. Ayato is solid. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Yelan, one of the game's most famous, prolific, best characters. Guys, guess what? She's Hydro. Oh my God, wow, that's insane, okay? And she applies Hydro off field, which is just insane. Freeze teams, Hyper Bloom, Burgeon, Vape, all of these team comps want one thing, and it's fucking disgusting. Yelan is the queen at that. There is Yelan and Xingqiu, the two pillars of the Hydro applicators in Genshin, and they are very similar and both unbelievably good. Now, Yelan does even more than that. She has mobility around the map. She sprints around, she can reposition, you can get around enemies, you can group smaller enemies with the, you know, attack of her skill, which is really useful. She generates a ton of energy. And with Fav, I mean, bro, she is boosting up the energy for the team. And the cooldown isn't that long. Her burst has a passive that makes it so the on-field character gets increased damage percent, which is just really crazy on top of how good she already is. And she's doing a lot of damage. Did I mention that? I apologize if I didn't. She's doing all of this while doing a lot of damage. So while a lot of people do think Yelan has been a little bit power crabbed, or like maybe those Hydro teams aren't the absolute best right now, they are, dude. They're insane. Hyper Bloom, Burgeon, Vape. These are some of the best teams in the entire game. And I still think to this day, like, man, if you pull Yelan, she will make a massive, drastic difference to your account. She will buff up all of the teams that I just mentioned alongside Xingqiu. Yelan is insane, and I think she truly, truly, truly is still one of the best characters in the game. She is pretty fucking goated. Next up is Cyno, and Cyno is a little bit of a misunderstood character. I think that he can do extremely well given his perfect teams and in a perfect circumstance, but unfortunately, dude, his just raw damage ceiling is not out of this world, okay? It just really comes down to the numbers, and it's hard to get him in the most insane top tier levels of the game. He can be a Hyper Bloom driver, which is really cool with a character like Baizu, where he is on field doing raw electro damage while popping seeds, which is nice. But the problem with Cyno, and this happens on every single one of his teams, is his burst lasts so long that the supports that support him, like Xingqiu's burst, like Yelan's burst, even like Viridescent Venom Shred to boost up his electro damage, they don't last as long as his burst does. So he'll be out there clawing and scratching and doing his thing, and then the support skills and effects are going to slowly wear off, and he's still out there like, bro, I want to keep going. He needs these very specific supports, like Nahida's skill lasts a super long time, but then against multi-wave content, Nahida's not perfect for him. I do just think he struggles. I think I will put him here. He does have teams that really pop off. I think Hyper Bloom is probably his best team overall. I do genuinely think the characters above him are better, but he's still pretty darn solid. Chat, it is Nilou time. This is a character that I have time and time and time again sang the praises of. I truly do think that Nilou's mechanics and how she works is broken. I think it is almost like an oversight of the game. How Nilou works is all Hydro and Dendro characters on the team use her skill. You have now enabled Bountiful Cores, and it makes your blooms immediately explode and deal an absurd amount of damage. The reason why it's so broken is to raise the damage of those blooms. You build max HP on Nilou. You don't need crit. You don't need energy recharge, nothing, just HP. And then whoever's creating the blooms, you just need elemental mastery. That is it, okay? For a character to do so much damage and enable such a high DPS team comp with such extremely little investment it's unheard of. It's kind of crazy, and it's not something that is normal to Genshin Impact. She enables an extremely low budget team comp that is just kind of cracked. I have always put Nilou in the S+ tier on my tier list because of how I truly think she abuses the game. But chat, I have mentioned this with a couple other characters on this tier list, that Genshin Impact is ever so slightly getting higher. I mean, harder, excuse me, getting harder. They are raising the HP ceiling of the Abyss little by little every single patch. And Bloom as a team comp, the vertical ceiling is high, but like you really can't break past it. With higher quality artifacts, you can make Arlecchino and Mualani and Hu Tao. You can take them to these crazy new heights, while Bloom, you know, you really can't go above the 74k HP on Nilou. And you can't really get much higher than like 1,050 elemental mastery on a character. Like, the ceiling does kind of end, and I do just think that the blooms are slowing down in terms of what they can do. And so I think Nilou going like right here feels pretty darn good. Every time I talk about Nilou, people get weird about it. They just don't understand it. But dude, this character breaks the game. She's extremely good. And when she's good in the Abyss, it's a wash. Rolled. The Abyss gets absolutely smoked, and it's low effort, bro. This is the character that could 36-star the Abyss in like a week, like easily, if you just get elemental mastery pieces. It really is that simple. So I have to put her here. I think she is one of the most busted characters in the game, and I think this is right. We got a couple people saying Kniech. Fine, let's do Kniech, okay? Kniech, who I actually just played a lot of in the new combat event, I'll have you know, is a pretty darn unique character. He is a character similar to Emilie, where he kind of wants characters to be affected by burning for a little bit for him to, you know, truly pop off. And so there is that little hurdle you have to get over in team building. But my God, dude, this guy can do a lot of freaking damage. And the burning doesn't have to be on him for so long that like you can fit Farina on his team comps. So you can have Farina's insane damage buff on the team. Then you've got the Pyro, the Anemo, the second Dendro, whatever you're choosing to do. And Kniech will just be spinning around, popping off, doing a ton of damage. The damage of this character is kind of unbelievable, if I'm being completely honest. But then he gets to use an absolutely just over-tuned, cracked artifact set in Obsidian Codex, the Natlan artifact set that gives him 40% crit, bro. 40% crit plus the, you know, other effect, the damage increase that it gives is just, it's just ridiculous. Man, I don't like this because Hu Tao is like cute anime girl and Kniech like isn't. So this actually kind of hurts me, but I want you guys to know that I make sacrifices for you guys in honor of integrity and telling the truth. Super, super strong character for all the reasons I already said. Kniech bumped down Hu Tao. Back-to-back Dendro characters. It's time to talk about Nahida. Historically, one of the best characters in the entire game. I'm just gonna say this. I've been hearing rumblings in the Genshin community that Nahida's fallen off, bro. Dude, I don't know what that should be about, because at the very minimum, Nahida is still an S+ tier character. I think you are absolutely waffling if you're gonna put her any lower than this, okay? Dendro is broken. End of sentence. She is the best Dendro applicator in the entire game, bro. Her skill lasts like 20 seconds. It is absolutely absurd. Whether you're playing Hyper Bloom, Burning, Burgeon, Aggravate, Spread, it doesn't matter. She is the queen, okay? Her burst boosts up the whole team depending on what elements you have. It's crazy. And then, like I said, how she enables all those teams, she is doing a lot of damage all at the same time. You can be a level 1 Nahida player, stack all elemental mastery on her, and she is still extremely freaking good. Or you could be a level 99 mob boss Nahida and build something along the lines of EM Dendro crit, or EM Dendro EM, or EM EM crit, okay? And that is when you level up even further with your Nahida, where she is still supporting the team, sharing the elemental mastery with her burst, and then doing like a ton of damage herself. She gets bonus crit rate from her elemental mastery. She's absolutely insane, and I just think it is almost disrespectful to be putting Nahida like lower on some of these tier lists. I just think it's wild, man. I think we need to value characters that can enable and do so many things for so many different team comps in the entire game, and like Nahida does it. I'm gonna put Nahida right here. Absolutely goated. Bro, I said back-to-back Dendro characters. Uh-oh, it's back-to-back-to-back Dendro characters. Alhaitham is up next. Alhaitham is a character that, I will admit, I don't have him, but I have played a ton of him on viewers' accounts and friends' accounts and stuff because I think this character is so goddamn fun. I think he is one of the most cool, unique characters to play in the entire game, but that is not indicative of strength, okay? Fun is not indicative of strength. How good do I think he is? I still think this character is unbelievably good. You are a Dendro character that is applying Dendro because you're on field while normal attacking. There are so many characters in Genshin Impact whose effects, you know, synergize with specifically normal attacks, things like Yelan and Xingqiu, and there's a lot of other characters. Toma's shield, right? Stuff like that, okay? He does that, all while applying Dendro, one of the best elements in the game. He's doing a ton of damage. He's driving whatever kind of team comp you want. And I mean, the damage ceiling is there, bro. He's an S tier character. I still think to this day, this guy is just absolutely nuts. And like I said, he's super fun, bro. So like all those cool Dendro comps, Hyper Moon Virgin, whatever you want to run, he's there and he does it. When you look at him in a raw DPS vacuum, has he kind of slowed down compared to characters like Arlecchino and Mualani and Kanich? Yeah, he has, but he's just driving elemental reactions. This is an elemental game. I really like Alhaitham. Bottom of very strong, feels right, and feels respectful. I didn't plan this, but it's back to back to back to back Dendro characters, okay? It's Baizu. Baizu is up next. My last tier list, if you go back, I think a lot of you guys would be pretty shocked at my Baizu rating. I put him in the solid tier. I do not like Baizu's shield. I do not think of Baizu as a shield character, just because the shields are paper thin and they refresh at a rate that isn't fast enough for certain enemies, so you still get knocked over. And like when I put up a shield, I genuinely believe I should not get knocked over until that shield breaks, right? And like when it breaks in one hit, that just feels weird to me. So the shield is good, but it is not broken. But he does a lot of other things on top of that, okay? He gives a damage percent buff to the team. Invaluable. An amazing effect for a character to have. He does a big freaking burst heal, throwing his snake at the enemy and having it come back, healing the team for a lot of damage. So that's awesome for Farina teams especially. Homie applies Dendro off field like a Nahida, like a Yao who's a great 4-star. He does all of that in one character. Off field Dendro has always been cracked, and then like putting a shield on top of that and a heal on top of that is just making him really, really good. And I'm starting to really see him kind of outclass Yao. I used to put them pretty close, but I am going to give him the respect that he deserves. Baizu very strong, feels right this time around. All right, I gave chat one last pick, and they are going with Xiangyun, the hot bird mommy. Xiangyun, to me, is a character that I skipped because I was being a good community member. If you know, you know. She is a character that since her release, I have wanted on my account very badly. And it's not just because she's hot. That's part of it. I want to be honest with you guys, and I feel like I'm always honest with you guys. That is part of it. So she is Animo, and she burst heals the team. So something just like Jean. Well, that's pretty cool to have in one character, but like, that just sounds like Jean. Well, on top of all that, she enables the plunge buff comp to happen, okay? She is the character that makes Diluc have an absolutely cracked team comp. And yes, he is peeking his head out from the bottom of the tier list. So the fact that Xiangyun can take a character like Diluc and race him up that much is absolutely wild. Xiangyun can do that with so many freaking characters in a combination with like C6 Bennett, something like that. It's absolutely wild. She just does really weird things and makes any character in the game like good to above average, like pretty good. I think it would be wrong, and I think it would be criminal to not put her in the very strong tier. Homies, next up is Linny, and he's a character that I actually played a lot of this week, and I can tell you one thing about Linny This dude does an absolutely insane amount of damage, but he does have a few shortcomings. He is a charge attack bow character, which is not, you know, super fun and a little bit clunky. You can get knocked over, all that kind of stuff. That doesn't affect his damage. He can still put out a higher amount of damage. Other shortcomings are that his teams and the team comps that he's on are pretty limited because he has a very strong passive that wants a lot of other pyro characters on his team. It kind of limits him to a few different team comps, being you just kind of throw that passive out the window and you run him, another pyro character, Farina, and then like Xilonen or Kazuha. You run like almost mono pyro with 3 pyros in Kazuha or Xilonen, and then you can even run like a Chevreuse overload team. So his team comps are unfortunately a little bit limited. He kind of only has those 3. And like, that does kind of sound like a lot, but when you get down to his team members, they're pretty much locked in as like Dehya, Bennett, and the characters that I named. So he's not exactly versatile. That doesn't super affect his placement on the tier list, in my opinion. It's all about the damage that he can produce. I think I have to put him into S just because the damage is so high. We'll put these 3 pretty boys all next to each other. Bro, I asked who's next. I scroll down and look at that guy. It's time to talk about Genshin's most insane DPS character that they have ever released, New Valette. And on my last tier list, yes, I'm bringing it up a lot, okay? I was hesitant to put him into the S+ tier because of what I said about Arlecchino. To me, it is kind of weird to put a character that does absolutely nothing but raw damage into the S+ tier, but I have to accept it. There are just some characters that Genshin let bake in the oven too long, and they just went off the goddamn rails. So I have to do it, chat. He just has to go into the S+ tier. He uses the Marashoshi Hunter artifact set, so he gets 36% bonus crit on top of getting the normal charge attack bonus, which he loves. He synergizes with some of the best characters in the entire game, like Farina, Fischl, Beidou, Kazuha, Xilonen, Nahida, Baizu. All these characters help him just absolutely pop off. He's a raw hydro damage dealer. He sits there and holds the goddamn hydro pump up to the enemy's face, and they just get absolutely obliterated. He hits in a large AoE, so he can hit multiple enemies at the same time, and he's doing a ton of damage. He's tanky because you build HP on him. He self-heals to an extent. It's crazy, bro. It's absolutely crazy. His passives that raises damage, the one that involves you do hydro reactions and then he does more damage, it's easy to set up. You want to set it up. The damage numbers are just overtuned. He's cracked and he's broken, and this isn't even talking about the spin to win stupid strat, okay? I've told my opinion on the spin to win strat. I do think it's unintended and it is an exploit in the game, but it's a gotcha game where if you let that shit last too long in your game, you can't take it back because people spent money on it. So I don't think it should be removed from the game, but I do think it is dumb. Not even including that, he's an S+ tier character. He's stupid. He's OP. This is at C0, of course. C1, it's just like, what are we doing? Why? He's S+. And after New Valette, we got another big hot man. It's Wriothesley, baby. Wriothesley is a character that was known on release to feel a little bit incomplete, a little bit awkward. And that is because of his HP requirement on his damage, okay? He needs to be above 60% to do the empowered like damage of his stuff, but then he drains his own HP. So you have to time your attack to like heal up, but it can't always work. And it just feels kind of weird. But his C1 like fixes that, which is just annoying. Like, I don't like constellations like that where it just like strictly is like, this is a character that has a problem and now we fix it. So like, it's annoying, but we have to judge him at C0. I think at C1, he is very easily in the middle of very strong, but once again, this is at C0. After playing a pretty decent amount of Ayaka and Ganyu in the last couple months, and then testing out Wriothesley for this tier list, he feels better. He's way more versatile and unique than them. He can play on like these kind of pseudo freeze comps, but like, you know, he kind of breaks them, so it's not really his thing. He can be on melt teams with hydro characters or without hydro characters. He can be on these really cool like burn melt teams with like Baizu, Xingqiu, Xiangling. Like he has like a lot of really versatile comps, and I just think his raw damage output on these versatile team comps comes out to feel better than Ayaka and Ganyu. And He is one of the characters that synergizes with Shenhe. He's one of the characters that people are using a lot to clear the Abyss, but I'm just willing to bet that a lot of people do have him at C1 to fix that problem, but obviously not everybody. He's a good freaking character, and he's versatile. And I think at C0, this is a respectable placing because just look at the characters above him. Those are all amazing freaking characters. I think this is fair. I feel this in my heart. Prizely is good. He is solid. Top of 8. Chat, I have said her name so many goddamn times in this video. It is finally time to talk about Furina, one of the best characters in the entire game. A character that pretty much changed Genshin Impact a lot because she has so much unbelievable power in one character. Let me break it down. Her skill summons these 3 Hydro demons that just shred the enemies. She does a lot of freaking damage, and that's all while off field. Okay, well, those demons drain the HP of the characters on your team, which sounds like a bad thing, but it automatically, boom, activates Marashosi Hunter, one of the best artifact sets in the game. So any character that can utilize that is now fully activated with Furina. And then Furina's burst, it does damage, which is cool, but then based on fanfare stacks, which is based on the lowering and raising of HP, raises the entire team's elemental damage. That's it, bro. Every kind of damage that you do is raised from her thing, which is just crazy. You guys have heard every single character, every single DPS. Furina is there to buff them up. Even in my old tier list, I was talking about Furina and I was like, does she really change the game? And dude, after an entire year of cooking, of seeing all the new team comps arise, what are the best team comps in the game? Furina finds her way onto almost every single one. She is effectively like a Bennett, like a Kazuha, like a Xilonen for just about every single team comp in the entire game. Furina has a caveat that you may have caught on to. You require a healer on Furina's team. If you are using a slightly more budget healer like Qiqi or Bennett, it may actually not be enough healing for the whole team and you need a second healer. You got to get creative with things like Prototype Amber on some of your Kados users, like stuff like that to really make her feel amazing, which is a caveat that people thought was going to be a big deal. It turns out it's really not actually that hard because some of the best characters in the game can run these heals. Nuvolette can run Prototype Amber. Nahida can run Prototype Amber. Xilonen is a healer that works amazing with Furina. Bennett and Baizu are absolute goats. And I just feel like every single team comp in the game can use a Furina on her. She's too good. Furina might just be the best character in the whole game. Coming up after some extremely large shoes to fill is, who would have thought Eeks would say, one of his favorite characters in the game. Yes, Chiori is up next. I talked about Chiori a little bit earlier in the tier list, where I said she is pretty much strictly a better Albedo. And I stand by that. You can just look at the damage numbers. Chiori is an off-field Geo DPS, and the numbers that she does are just higher than Albedo by a pretty good margin. Chiori is also a character that is surprisingly splashable. If you have her at C1, she is extremely freaking splashable. But unfortunately, Chiori wants Geo constructs on the team to really pump out a ton of damage. Chiori at C0, I don't like this, but like, I don't think it's fair to put her in solid. I think that the characters in solid are more impactful. At C1, she goes up a lot, but this is fair. I'm sorry, Chiori. Chiori, I'm not sorry. I have you C6. I'm giving you so much money, I can't be sorry, okay? She's a B. One last thing to say about C1 Chiori is the combination of C1 Chiori and Xilonen is pretty absolutely wild. It can kind of like a hard carry pretty much any 2 team members in the game. That's why they call it the wheelchair comp, is because they just like roll, you know, carry the person to the finish line, baby. But yeah, C0, this is where she's at. Okay, we are going to rate Chlorand up next. Chlorand is a character that does extremely high electro damage, okay? I unfortunately don't super enjoy playing her that much because you pop her skill and you want to attack 3 times, dash, attack 3 times, dash, attack 3 times. And so when you are not running a shield with Chlorand, you can sometimes be forced to literally dash or like cancel your attack in that time, and it just reduces the skill duration, and you get less damage out of her because of it. And to me, it feels a little bit clunky. So you actually, against certain enemies, you will do less damage. But if you build her with good shield characters, so Toma on a Chevreuse team, Hirata or Baizu on a Aggravate Spread team, Zhongli on any of those teams that I just mentioned, because, you know, that's what Zhongli does. She is really freaking good. She out damages the Electro DPSs like Keqing and Cyno by a pretty darn decent margin. I think she even does more than Raiden as a solo DPS, but here's the thing, is Raiden is this high on the tier list because of her flexibility of Hyper Bloom and the rest of the supports. Cloran doesn't support, Cloran just does damage. And so, with that, I would probably need to place her in the very strong tier. I think Linny's raw damage is pretty freaking insane, and I have to value all Hytham's ability to drive Hyper Bloom, drive Burgeon, drive Spread, drive all these things. She is a very good character, guys. Don't get it twisted. She's very strong. And so with chat's choosing of other characters to skip the list, we are left with the last 5-star on the tier list, and that is Sijun. Guys, I genuinely put a lot of time into playing Sijun the week before this tier list. She's adorable. Her story quest goes hard, but dude, she is definitely like a worse Kokomi. Kokomi's heal places better. She applies more hydro. She like does more damage if you build her proper. She just genuinely feels like, to me, a worse Kokomi. Look, I'm not gonna put her in D. She heals more than Qiqi, and she applies one of the best elements in the game of hydro, so it doesn't really feel right. And then she has the buff of boosting up elemental skill damage. Characters like Farina, who she synergizes amazingly with, and like Fischl, Yae Miko, these characters that have really high skill damage, Sijun does benefit them a lot. Sijun is a solid healer, not the best, but she applies a good element. She has one little buff to her kit in the skill thing, and that is kind of where her benefits fall. Sijun, love you, but I'm gonna put her in the IA tier. Ladies and gentlemen, we have literally reached the end of the tier list. After 3 hours of being live on Twitch, this is where we are at, and I think I am just going to make a couple of ever so slightly small changes. I think Chiori probably goes right here, just an ever so slightly small change. Bro, I think I might move Dehya like just a tiny bit higher. She has utility. She's not good, but she has some utility, baby. And with that, chat, that is my complete 5-star tier list in its entirety. So gamers, the week that I made this tier list was the release of Chaska. And the day I recorded the tier list, she wasn't quite out yet, but I have just spent 4 hours testing her in the Abyss with multiple different teams, and I feel a little bit more educated to give you guys my opinion here on Chaska. But guys, please keep in mind, Chaska has been out for 3 days. This is an early thoughts. Unfortunately, I just, I'm not gonna lie to you and say that this is a definitive fact of how good she is, but let me break it down. Chaska feels absolutely crazy. She is unbelievably unique in the fact that she wants to run attack crit because she actually doesn't do that much animo damage. She, loads the bullets depending on her teammates' elements, and she's doing pyro damage, cryo damage, electro damage, hydro damage, which is extremely weird. And so because you can't build, 4 different goblets, you build her attack. And then she just does so much raw damage that you can kind of build her with so many freaking different characters, bro. She might be one of the most creative and flexible team building characters in the whole game, and her damage was pretty darn freaking nuts. Playing her a lot in the Abyss, I am thinking somewhere around here, maybe even a little bit higher. I do truly think her raw damage and team comp flexibility is pretty darn insane. I am going to say, as an early thoughts on Chaska placement, that this is pretty darn good. This character is really, really freaking strong. All right, back to the present Eeks. After an entire year of playing Genshin Impact, playing with all of these team comps, seeing the meta evolve and all this stuff, this is where I have arrived, okay? And once again, if your favorite character is a little bit lower on this tier list, hey man, I'm just one dude's opinion. Go out there, build that character, make him cracked, and prove me freaking wrong, okay? I would love to see your guys' insane characters, okay? And then yeah, pull for who you want. This game is for fun. Grab the characters you want, no matter how good they are on this tier list or whatever, okay? YouTube, we are on the way to 100K subs. We are pretty darn close. It's a dream of mine to hit it by the end of the year. If you watch all my videos, you hear me say this all the time. But dudes, check if you are subbed. You might think you're subbed and you're not. I would appreciate that if you double checked for me, please, okay? Come over on the Twitch. Today was a ton of fun, even though everyone in chat, you know, maybe we had some differing opinions, but we are civilized chatters and we agreed to accept each other's opinions. And you should come join because it's pretty freaking cool. And then obviously, huge shout outs to the patrons, people who support us over there. You guys are absolute goats. Melon, Zik, The Clouds, Rat, Shaz, Kyo, everybody over there. Thank you guys oh so very much. And guys, I will see you next week with the 4-star tier list too. See you later, homies. Peace.